The unstoppable alien invaders stripped sanity from minds across the galaxy, but they would soon learn that human minds break for no one. It was a day like any other when Captain Jordan Harris received a frantic distress call over the subspace emergency channel. Xenos, the Jem'Hadar delegate, begged for human aid in the face of an unfathomable threat that had already devoured dozens of worlds and civilizations. Harris listened with a mixture of concern and intrigue as Xenos described the terrible foe. Reports spoke of strange, reality-bending weapons that ignored all known defenses. Conquered populations were reduced to madness, their minds shattered by unknowable horrors. Even the mighty Jem'Hadar fleets had been swept aside with laughable ease. Most species were paralyzed with terror, resigned to their inevitable doom, but not the humans. Captain Harris saw an opportunity for humans to prove their worth. He swiftly assembled his finest crew and set course for the besieged Jem'Hadar colony. As they raced through hyperspace, the crew dug into what little intel they had on this mysterious adversary. Wild theories flew, from extra-dimensional demons to ancient vengeful AIs. But hard facts were scarce. The enemy's true capabilities and motives remained shrouded in frightening secrecy. Dropping out of warp, they beheld a scene of utter devastation. The colony lay in ruins, its cities shattered into bizarre, eye-twisting shapes. Babbling survivors spoke of the devourers who broke minds and fed on fear itself. Captain Harris set his jaw. Though the odds seemed hopeless, the humans would stand firm. This was humanity's chance to shine, while the rest of the galaxy cowered in fear. No matter what incomprehensible nightmares they faced, his crew would find a way to overcome them. Failure here would doom not only the Jem'Hadar, but all life in the galaxy. Everything now hinged on the humans breaking the unbreakable and defeating the undefeatable. As he prepared for the trials ahead, Harris allowed himself a tight smile. Time to show them what humans are made of. Time to show them what humans are made of, Jordan thought as he led his team into the fray. The Jem'Hadar colony lay in ruins, but the humans had a few tricks up their sleeves. Jordan barked orders, directing his crew to deploy their advanced weaponry. Plasma cannons lit up the sky, catching the devourers off guard. The humans pressed their advantage, destroying enemy ships and ground units with practiced precision. But the devourers adapted quickly. Reality itself seemed to twist and shudder as they unleashed their psychic attacks. Jordan's crew members clutched their heads, some dropping to their knees as vivid hallucinations assaulted their minds. Fear, raw and primal, threatened to overwhelm them. "Stand fast," Jordan shouted, rallying his team. "We're not going to let these bastards win." With an almost feral battle cry, Jordan led a daring counterattack. Xenos fought at his side, his Jem'Hadar warrior spirit reignited by the humans' unyielding drive. Together, they carved a path through the enemy forces, their weapons blazing. They breached the command ship, ready to end this nightmare once and for all. But what awaited them was a horror beyond imagining. The Devourer leader loomed before them, a seething mass of darkness that seemed to consume all light. "Foolish primitives," it rumbled, its voice like the crushing depths of a black hole. "You dare oppose me? I have devoured galaxies. Your pitiful species are but specks before my power." Jordan stood tall, his eyes blazing with defiance. "We'll stop you. Whatever it takes, we'll find a way." The entity laughed, a sound that chilled the very soul. "You will try and you will fail. All will be consumed." In that moment, Jordan knew what he had to do. He turned to Xenos, his voice steady despite the fear gripping his heart. "Get back to the ship. Overload the antimatter reactor. Ram this monstrosity with everything we've got." "What about you?" Xenos asked, his usually stoic face etched with concern. "I'll buy you the time you need. Now go." As Xenos teleported away, Jordan faced the Devourer leader alone. The entity lashed out with tendrils of pure darkness, but Jordan stood his ground. He poured every ounce of his will into one final desperate act. The ship shuddered as the reactor went critical. Reality itself seemed to scream as human technology and Devourer malice collided. Jordan vanished in a blinding flash of light, his fate uncertain. From the bridge of the retreating Jem'Hadar ship, Xenos watched the cataclysmic explosion with a heavy heart. The Devourer ship was damaged, its psychic grip on the galaxy momentarily weakened. But the cost had been high. "Brave Captain Harris," Xenos murmured. "Your sacrifice will not be forgotten." Little did Xenos know that Jordan's story was not nearly finished. In a realm beyond the boundaries of normal space, Jordan faced a ghostly apparition. The being spoke of an ancient war, of a cycle of destruction that had played out across eons. "I can give you the power to break this cycle," the spirit said, "but the price will be steep. Are you willing to pay it, Jordan Harris?" As the weight of the humanity's fate settled upon his shoulders, Jordan knew that his next choice would change everything. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear: the battle for the galaxy's soul had only just begun. Jordan floated in the ethereal void, his legs shaking from the spirit's offer. The being shimmered before him, its form shifting and flowing like liquid starlight. "I am the eternal light," it spoke, its voice resonating through Jordan's very being. "Long ago, we battled the Devourers across countless galaxies." Jordan's brow furrowed. "And now you want me to take up that fight?" "Yes," the eternal light pulsed. "But know this, wielding our power will change you. Your humanity may be lost in the process." Jordan clenched his fists, torn between duty and self-preservation. "And if I refuse? Then all will fall to darkness." Meanwhile, aboard the battered flagship of the Allied forces, Xenos paced the bridge. The Jem'Hadar warrior's face was etched with grief and tenacity. "We cannot let Captain Harris's sacrifice be in vain," he growled to the assembled officers. "I propose we strike at the heart of the enemy, their central hive mind." Murmurs of shock rippled through the room. A human lieutenant spoke up. "Sir, with all due respect, that's suicide." Xenos's eyes blazed. "Perhaps, but it's our only chance." As the Alliance prepared for their daring plan, reality itself seemed to buckle. A blinding flash filled the bridge, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. When the light faded, Jordan stood before them, but not as they remembered him. His body glowed with an otherworldly radiance, his eyes twin points of starfire. "We don't have much time," he said, his voice carrying an echo of eternity. Jordan quickly explained his encounter with the eternal light and the true nature of the cosmic war they now found themselves in. The assembled officers listened in stunned silence. With their new allies' power and knowledge, the coalition launched their assault. Jordan led the charge, streaking through space like a comet. Where he passed, the Devourer's psychic miasma recoiled and dissipated. Xenos and his strike team used the chaos to slip past the enemy's defenses. They fought their way through twisting corridors of alien geometry, planting their disruptor device at the core of the hive mind. But their actions did not go unnoticed. The fabric of space-time itself warped and twisted as the Devourer overlord manifested before them. It was a mass of writhing darkness, drinking in all light and hope. "Insignificant motes," it rumbled, its voice threatening to shatter minds. "Your resistance ends here." Jordan surged forward, meeting the dark entity head-on. Light and shadow clashed on a cosmic scale, threatening to tear reality apart. As the titanic forces battled, Xenos saw his chance. He banged his hand down on the disruptor's activation panel. A pulse of energy exploded outward, racing through the Devourer's psychic network. Across the battlefield, the enemy forces faltered and fell into disarray. The Allied fleet pressed their advantage, liberating world after world from the Devourer's grip. But the Overlord fought on, matching Jordan blow for blow. As they grappled at the edge of existence, Jordan felt his humanity slipping away. In that moment of desperation, he realized the truth. His human spirit was not a weakness to be discarded, but the key to victory. Jordan reached deep within himself, calling upon every memory, every emotion that made him who he was. With a defiant roar, he channeled that raw human essence into one final, cataclysmic blast. The devourer overlord screamed as it was consumed by the light, its dark essence scattered to the cosmic winds, and the remaining enemy forces crumbled without its will to guide them. In the aftermath, Jordan and Xenos stood side by side, watching as the liberated worlds began to rebuild. Both were changed by their ordeal, but the bond between them, and between their peoples, had never been stronger. "What now?" Xenos asked, his usual stoicism softened by genuine curiosity. Jordan gazed out at the stars, his eyes still holding a hint of that cosmic fire. "Now we heal, we rebuild, and we stay vigilant. For in the vast emptiness between galaxies, unseen by mortal eyes, a tiny mote of darkness began to coalesce. The devourers were down, but not yet out, and their hunger for vengeance would not be denied. Years passed, but the scars of the Devourer War never faded. Jordan Harris stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship, his eyes fixed on the swirling anomaly ahead. Long-range sensors beeped insistently, warning of reality itself unraveling at the seams. "Take us in closer," Jordan ordered, his voice steady despite the unease churning in his gut. As they approached the coordinates, a massive rift tore open before them, dark tendrils of energy lashing out. Systems across the ship flickered and died. "By the Founders," Xenos breathed, his reptilian features twisted in horror. "It can't be." Jordan nodded grimly. "They're back." Before anyone could react, a nightmarish form emerged from the rift. It was Jordan, but wrong, a twisted shadow crackling with malevolent power. "Hello, Jordan," it purred, voice like broken glass. "I am Umbra, born from the essence you thought destroyed, and I've been busy." Jordan's fists clenched as Umbra spoke of feeding on fear, of plans to resurrect the Devourers and remake the universe. "We stopped you before," Jordan growled. "We'll do it again." Umbra laughed, a sound that set teeth on edge. "Oh, I don't think so. This time I'll break that unbreakable human spirit of yours." As if on cue, a horde of shadow creatures poured from the rift. They swarmed the Coalition ships, ripping through hulls with impossible strength. "All ships, open fire!" Jordan bellowed, but their weapons seemed to pass right through the monstrous shadows. Xenos barked orders to his Jem'Hadar warriors, who fought with suicidal bravery. But for every shadow they destroyed, 2 more took its place. Jordan watched his fleet being torn apart, desperation clawing at him. Then he remembered. The power of the eternal light still dwelled within him. Closing his eyes, Jordan reached deep inside himself. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cosmic energy surged through him, and his body blazed with searing light. "Now!" Jordan roared. "Hit them with everything we've got!" Empowered by Jordan's radiance, Coalition weapons found their mark. Shadow creatures shrieked and dissolved under the onslaught. But Umbra remained untouched, growing stronger by the second. Jordan knew they had to strike at the source. "Xenos," he called. "With me, we're going in." A strike team assembled, Jordan, Xenos, and the toughest veterans of the First Devourer War. They fought their way towards the heart of the rift, where Umbra's true form awaited. As they neared their goal, the entity shed all pretense of humanity. It became a seething vortex of darkness, threatening to devour all of reality. Jordan steeled himself, cosmic energy crackling around him, light versus shadow. The hope of the universe hung in the balance as the two forces clashed. The cosmic battlefield erupted in chaos as Jordan and Umbra's titanic forms clashed. Xenos, his scaled face set with fierce focus, led a strike team towards the heart of the dimensional rift. In his clawed hands, he clutched an experimental Jem'Hadar device, their last, desperate hope. "Activate on my mark!" Xenos barked, his voice cutting through the din of battle. The device hummed to life, emitting a piercing frequency that sent ripples through the fabric of reality. For a moment, it seemed to work. Umbra's shadowy form flickered and wavered. But the victory was short-lived. Umbra's malevolent consciousness sensed the threat and lashed out. Tendrils of pure darkness whipped through the air, ensnaring Xenos and his warriors. The Jem'Hadar fought with all their strength, but the shadows tightened their grip, forming an impenetrable cocoon around them. Xenos felt his mind assaulted by visions of terror. He saw his homeworld burning, his comrades falling one by one to an unstoppable enemy. The warrior's iron will began to crack under the onslaught. "Fight it!" he roared, more to himself than his trapped comrades. "We are Jem'Hadar. We do not yield." But the visions continued, sapping their strength and determination with each passing second. Jordan, locked in combat with Umbra, sensed his allies' peril. His body blazed with cosmic energy as he reached deep within himself, tapping into the wellspring of human spirit that had carried them through countless battles. "You will not break us," Jordan growled, his voice resonating with the defiance of billions. A beam of pure, searing light erupted from Jordan's outstretched hands. It lanced through Umbra's swirling form, momentarily disrupting the dark entity's concentration. In that fleeting instant of weakness, Jordan saw his chance. Without hesitation, he plunged into the heart of the rift. Reality twisted and warped around him as he entered a realm beyond normal space and time. Here, at the very nexus of Umbra's power, Jordan came face to face with something ancient and terrible. A fragment of the original Devourer consciousness pulsed before him, a writhing mass of malevolence that had festered for eons. Jordan felt waves of fear and despair washing over him, threatening to drown his spirit. But he pushed back, calling upon every ounce of strength and hope he could muster. His body glowed with otherworldly radiance as he engaged in a battle beyond physical form. Meanwhile, outside the rift, Xenos and his warriors struggled against their bonds. Umbra's cruel voice echoed in their minds, promising an eternity of torment. "Your spirits will shatter," it hissed. "Your very souls will be my feast." Xenos felt his dedication wavering, his legendary Jem'Hadar discipline crumbling under the psychic assault. Just as he was about to give in to despair, a brilliant flash erupted from the rift. Jordan's light, pure and unrelenting, swept across the battlefield. It washed over Xenos and his team, burning away the tendrils of shadow that held them. With it came a surge of hope, rekindling the fire in their hearts. "Now!" Xenos roared, his voice filled with newfound strength. "Strike as one!" The Allied forces unleashed everything they had. Energy weapons, missiles, and beams of purifying light slammed into Umbra's weakened form. The dark entity writhed and screamed, its essence unraveling under the onslaught. Jordan emerged from the rift, his eyes blazing with cosmic fire. He joined the attack, channeling the full might of the eternal light into one final, devastating blow. Umbra's form shattered, fragments of darkness scattering across the void. But even in defeat, a tendril of malice remained. It coalesced, preparing to flee and rebuild its strength. Jordan's hand shot out, grasping the last remnant of Umbra's essence. With a surge of power, he severed the final link between the Devourers and the galaxy they had terrorized for so long. The battlefield fell silent. Xenos approached Jordan, both warriors battered but unbowed. "It's over," Jordan said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and relief. Xenos nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. "Thanks to you, old friend. The galaxy owes you a debt it can never repay." As the Allied fleet regrouped, Jordan gazed out at the stars. The shadow of the Devourers no longer loomed over them, but he knew the work of healing had only just begun. Jordan stood before the pulsing orb of the psychic resonance network, its surface a swirling maelstrom of thoughts and emotions from trillions of minds. He placed his hand on the cool surface, feeling the echoes of countless souls beneath his fingertips. "Are you certain about this?" Xenos asked, his reptilian features etched with concern. Jordan nodded, his eyes reflecting the shifting light of the orb. "It's the only way. We can't let this aberration spread any further." He closed his eyes, focusing on the memories that had carried him through the darkest moments of the war. The faces of fallen comrades flashed through his mind, their laughter, their courage, their sacrifice. He remembered the worlds they'd saved, the civilizations they'd pulled back from the brink of annihilation. With a deep breath, Jordan opened his eyes. "I'm ready." Xenos barked a series of orders in his native tongue. A group of Jem'Hadar mind adepts formed a circle around Jordan, their hands outstretched. "We'll anchor you," Xenos said, taking his place in the circle. "But once you're in there—" "I know," Jordan replied. "I'll be on my own." He pressed his palm firmly against the orb. A jolt of energy surged through him, and the world around him dissolved into a cacophony of light and sound. Jordan found himself adrift in an ocean of consciousness. Billions of thoughts and memories swirled around him like glowing motes of dust. He pushed through the chaos, searching for the dark taint of the devourer aberration. A tendril of darkness brushed against his mind. Jordan recoiled, feeling the icy touch of ancient malevolence. He steeled himself and pressed forward, following the trail of corruption. The aberration's presence grew stronger, a pulsing mass of fear and despair at the heart of the shared consciousness. Jordan could feel it worming its way into the minds around it, planting seeds of doubt and terror. "Enough!" Jordan called out, his voice echoing through the psychic landscape. "Your reign of fear ends here." The darkness coalesced into a writhing form. Its voice slithered into Jordan's mind, dripping with malice. "Foolish human, you've delivered yourself into my grasp." Tendrils of shadow lashed out, seeking to ensnare Jordan's thoughts. He countered with a pulse of radiant energy, pushing back the encroaching darkness. "You forget," Jordan said, channeling more of the eternal light's power. "I've faced your kind before, and I'm still standing." The aberration howled, its form twisting as it tried to evade Jordan's assault. It dove deeper into the shared consciousness, dragging Jordan with it. They plunged through layers of memory and emotion. Jordan caught glimpses of worlds ravaged by war, of species driven to the brink of extinction. The weight of so much suffering threatened to overwhelm him. But with each painful memory, Jordan found a spark of hope. He saw beings rising from the ashes, rebuilding their civilizations. He felt the unbreakable bonds forged in the crucible of war. Jordan gathered these sparks of resilience, weaving them into a shield of pure will. The aberration's attacks glanced off, unable to penetrate the armor of shared purpose. "This is the true strength of life," Jordan declared, his voice resonating through the psychic realm. "Not fear, not despair, but the courage to rise again and again." He unleashed a wave of purifying light, scouring away the aberration's influence. The entity shrieked, its form unraveling under the onslaught of hope and defiance. As the last traces of the devourer taint dissipated, Jordan felt the shared consciousness stabilize. The fear and doubt that had plagued so many minds began to recede, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. Jordan's awareness snapped back to his physical form. He staggered, nearly collapsing as Xenos rushed to support him. "Did it work?" Xenos asked, scanning the readouts on the psychic network. Jordan nodded, his voice hoarse. "It's gone, but our work isn't finished." He looked out at the stars, knowing that the scars of war would take time to fully heal. But for the first time since their victory over Umbra, Jordan felt a true sense of hope for the future. The fight against the lingering echoes of the Devourers would continue. But now, united in spirit and purpose, the beings of the galaxy stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Jordan plunged into the vast sea of consciousness, his mind instantly bombarded by a tsunami of raw terror. Billions of voices screamed in his head, each cry amplified to deafening levels. He saw worlds burning, civilizations crumbling, loved ones torn apart. Every fear from every mind assaulted him at once. "Focus," Jordan told himself, clinging to the faint tether of his ally's psychic anchor. He pushed through the chaos, drawing on memories that had sustained him through the darkest days of the war. The faces of fallen comrades flashed before him, their sacrifices a burning ember in his heart. As he ventured deeper, Jordan encountered nightmarish manifestations born from the collective fears of countless species. A group of Jem'Hadar warriors cowered before towering specters of disgrace and weakness. Jordan watched as the proud soldiers' bodies withered, reduced to frail husks by the psychic assault. Nearby, A colossal leviathan of shadow and flame crushed entire planets beneath its bulk. The screams of dying worlds echoed through the psychic plane, threatening to shatter Jordan's perseverance. The cacophony of terror grew louder with each passing moment. Jordan felt his sense of self slipping away, his identity eroding under the relentless onslaught. But just as he neared the breaking point, a warm light blossomed within him. Memories of camaraderie, of hard-won victories, of hope kindled in the darkest hour. These became his lifeline. "I am Jordan," he asserted, his inner voice a beacon cutting through the psychic storm. "And I will not fall." Steeled by this rekindled strength, Jordan pressed on. He dove into the blackest depths of the collective unconscious, where even thought itself seemed to wither and die. There, he found it, the source of the corruption. A pulsing mass of pure dread hung suspended in the void, tendrils of malevolence radiating outward to infect every corner of reality. As Jordan approached, the aberration's attention snapped to him. A psychic voice, dripping with malice, filled his mind. "Insignificant speck," it hissed. "Your light is but a candle before the eternal dark. I will snuff you out." A torrent of concentrated psychic poison slammed into Jordan. He reeled under the assault, feeling his very essence begin to unravel. Visions of utter futility and cosmic horror threatened to break his spirit once and for all. But Jordan refused to yield. He reached deep within himself, calling upon the purest, most transcendent moments of his life. The day he first piloted a starship, the triumph of their victory over Umbra, the unwavering bond he shared with Xenos and his comrades. These memories blazed within him, a fire that could not be extinguished. Jordan channeled this radiance outward, illuminating the darkest recesses of the psychic realm. Everywhere the light touched, the aberration's influence withered and died. The entity shrieked in agony, its form beginning to disintegrate under the onslaught of pure, defiant will. "Impossible," it howled. "I am fear incarnate. I cannot be defeated." "You're wrong," Jordan countered, his voice resonating with the strength of billions. "Fear only has power when we give it to you, and we choose to be stronger." The aberration lashed out in desperation, seeking to drag Jordan down with it. But Jordan stood firm, bolstered by the spirits of countless souls who refused to submit to terror. He stared into the heart of the cosmic darkness without flinching. "You have no power here," Jordan declared. "Not anymore." With a final piercing cry, the aberration shattered. Its foul influence evaporated from the minds it had poisoned, leaving behind a sense of profound relief. The psychic network pulsed with newfound vitality, as billions of minds rejoiced in their freedom. Jordan's consciousness began to drift back towards his physical form. But as he ascended from the depths, he sensed a flicker of movement in the outer reaches of the psychic plane. A tiny shard of the aberration, clinging to existence, vanished into the void between realities. The years following the defeat of Umbra brought a semblance of peace to the galaxy, but scars ran deep. Jordan and Xenos worked tirelessly to mend the psychological wounds inflicted by the Devourers. Progress came slowly, marked by small victories and setbacks. On the frontier world of Novus Prime, those setbacks erupted into chaos. Jordan stood before a holographic display, watching as reports flooded in from the planet's surface. Cities burned. Civilians cowered in fear. A splinter group calling themselves the Purifiers had seized control. "How bad is it?" Jordan asked, his voice tight with concern. Xenos' reptilian features twisted into a grimace. "Worse than we feared. They've tapped into the residual trauma, twisted it into a weapon." The final straw came when a coalition relief convoy, bringing vital supplies and medical aid, vanished in a flash of weapons fire. Millions of lives snuffed out in an instant. Jordan banged his head on the console. "Enough! We end this now." Within hours, he'd assembled a crack team. Veterans of 100 battles, each bearing their own scars from the war. As their stealth shuttle approached Novus Prime, Jordan briefed them on the mission. "We go in quiet," he said. "Neutralize the leadership before they can ignite a full-scale conflict." Xenos, now back in his element as a covert operative, nodded in agreement. My mind adepts will run interference, keeping us off their sensors. The team infiltrated the Purifier's compound under cover of darkness. Jordan led the way, his movements fluid and silent. They navigated a maze of corridors, avoiding patrols with practiced ease. In a cavernous laboratory, they found the true horror of the Purifier's plan. Scavenged devourer tech lined the walls, pulsing with malevolent energy. Jordan felt a chill run down his spine as he recognized the artifacts. They're weaponizing fear itself, Xenos whispered, his scales pale with shock. One of Xenos' adepts, a young Kilrath named Zara, stepped forward. Her antenna quivered as she extended her psychic senses. The potential is catastrophic, she reported. If activated, it could plunge the entire sector into a nightmare from which there'd be no waking. Jordan's face hardened. Then we make sure that doesn't happen. They pushed deeper into the compound, finally reaching the command center. The Purifier leader, a gaunt human with wild eyes, stood before a pulsing orb of dark energy. Stand down, Jordan called out, his weapon trained on the man. It's over. The leader's laugh was brittle, bordering on hysteria. Over. We've only just begun. Can't you see? Only by embracing our darkest fears can we truly be strong. This isn't strength, Jordan countered. It's madness. The leader's hand hovered over a control panel. Then let madness reign. He slammed his palm down. The artifacts roared to life, unleashing a tidal wave of psychic energy. Jordan staggered under the assault, his mind bombarded with images of cosmic horror and despair. Xenos and his team formed a protective circle, their minds linked in a desperate defense. Focus! Xenos shouted over the cacophony of screams that filled the air. Remember your training! But the Purifier leader's voice cut through the chaos, filled with maniacal glee. Your petty mantras are nothing. Feel the true power of soul-purging dread. Reality itself began to warp and twist. Jordan watched in horror as the walls melted, revealing glimpses of nightmarish realms beyond human comprehension. We have to shut it down, Jordan yelled, fighting to be heard over the psychic maelstrom. Xeno shook his head, his eyes wide with fear. It's too late. The resonance is self-sustaining. Jordan's mind raced. There had to be a way. Then it hit him. A plan so insane it just might work. He activated his comlink, connecting to their warship in orbit. This is Jordan, he barked. I need the ship on a collision course with these coordinates. Maximum speed. Xenos grabbed his arm. You can't be serious. Jordan met his old friend's gaze. It's the only way. The kinetic impact might be enough to disrupt the vortex. Then I'm going with... No, Jordan cut him off. I need you to get the team out. Make sure this doesn't spread beyond the compound. Before Xenos could argue further, Jordan was moving. He sprinted through the twisting corridors, reality bending around him with each step. He reached the hangar bay, diving into an armored life pod. As the pod's systems came online, Jordan took one last look at the world outside. The Purifier base was now the eye of a psychic hurricane, dark energies swirling and pulsing. Jordan gritted his teeth and punched in the launch sequence. The life pod shot forward, streaking towards the heart of the maelstrom. Behind him, he knew the warship was bearing down, a metal fist traveling at near light speed. As the pod plunged into the swirling chaos, Jordan closed his eyes. He thought of all they'd fought for, all they'd sacrificed. He wouldn't let it end here. The life pod entered the vortex, and the world exploded into light and sound. The life pod shuddered violently as it hurtled toward the psionic vortex. Jordan's fingers flew across the control panel, his mind locked in a battle against the cacophony of voices screaming in his head. He gritted his teeth, drawing upon reserves of mental fortitude forged in the crucible of war against the Devourers. Not today, Jordan muttered, his voice barely audible over the pod's straining systems. With seconds to spare, Jordan activated the quantum shielding. Energy crackled around the pod, forming an iridescent bubble. The life pod plunged through the vortex's event horizon, reality warping and twisting around it. Jordan's senses reeled as he emerged into a realm of pure nightmare. Impossible shapes writhed in the void, defying the laws of physics and sanity alike. Formless entities drifted past, their very presence sending waves of primal terror through Jordan's mind. Fighting against the urge to close his eyes, Jordan focused on the pod's controls. He realigned the inertial dampeners, feeling the shift in the pod's trajectory. With a burst from the auxiliary thrusters, the life pod became a streaking projectile aimed at the pulsating heart of the vortex. Impact. A soundless explosion of psychic energy erupted from the point of collision. Jordan's world became a maelstrom of fractured realities as the shockwave tore through the fabric of the nightmare dimension. Alarms blared within the pod as it tumbled through the collapsing realm. Jordan's muscles strained against the G-forces, his vision blurring. Just as unconsciousness threatened to claim him, a series of brilliant flashes pierced the chaos. The Jem'Hadar fleet's tachyon pulses cut through the dimensional barriers, opening a pathway home. Jordan felt a surge of relief as the pod's systems registered Xenos taking remote control. With a bone-jarring crash, the life pod slammed into the deck of a coalition warship. Jordan's head snapped forward, his restraints digging into his shoulders. Through the cracked viewport, he glimpsed a swarm of activity as rescue teams converged on the battered craft. The pod's hatch hissed open. Xenos' scaled face appeared, concern etched in every line. "Jordan, can you hear me?" Jordan tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come. His body felt wrong, as if his very atoms were trying to occupy multiple spaces at once. He stumbled from the pod, legs buckling beneath him. Xenos caught his friend, lowering him gently to the deck. "Medical team now." As Jordan slipped into unconsciousness, he caught fragments of urgent conversation. "A quantum destabilization. Never seen anything like it. Get him to the lab immediately." Days blurred together as Jordan drifted in and out of awareness. He found himself in a stark medical facility, surrounded by puzzled Jem'Hadar scientists. Each time he opened his eyes, the world seemed slightly different. Equipment rearranged, faces subtly altered. During one moment of clarity, Jordan grabbed Xenos' arm. "Listen, I've seen it. The void. It's coming." Xenos leaned closer, his reptilian features creased with worry. "What void, Jordan? What did you see?" But already the moment was slipping away. Jordan's thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. He saw flashes of entire galaxies being erased, reality itself unraveling thread by thread. No, have to stop it," Jordan mumbled, his eyes rolling back. Xenos turned to his team, frustration evident in his voice. "Increase the chronoton field. We need to stabilize his quantum signature." As the scientists worked feverishly, Jordan's consciousness continued to fragment. In one instant, he was back on Earth, watching the sunset over a pristine ocean. In the next, he stood amidst the ruins of a world scoured clean by the devourers. Through it all, the void lurked at the edges of his perception, an all-consuming absence that threatened to swallow everything Jordan had ever known or loved. The monitors tracking Jordan's vital signs shrieked in alarm. His body convulsed, eyes rolling back as reality fractured around him. Xenos barked orders to the medical team, his scaled hands flying across the control panel of the experimental matrix. "Initiating psychic link," Xenos announced, his voice tight with urgency. "Prepare for neural synchronization." A web of glowing filaments enveloped both Jordan and Xenos. The Jem'Hadar scientist felt a jolt as his consciousness merged with Jordan's splintering psyche. He plunged into a maelstrom of shattered memories and fragmented identities. Xenos found himself adrift in an infinite void. Whispers of cosmic terror echoed through the nothingness. He caught glimpses of Jordan, or rather, pieces of him, scattered across the expanse like shards of a broken mirror. "Jordan!" Xenos called out, his mental voice reverberating through the abyss. "Focus on my presence! Let me anchor you!" A tendril of absolute darkness lashed out, nearly engulfing one of Jordan's fragments. Xenos recoiled as he sensed the primordial hunger emanating from the entity. This was no mere absence of light, but a sentient oblivion. The void entity's thoughts crashed against Xenos' mind. "Insignificant motes," it rumbled. "Your struggles are meaningless before the eternal cycle of terror." Xenos steeled himself against the onslaught. He reached out with his psychic abilities, gathering the scattered pieces of Jordan's consciousness. Each fragment pulsed with human defiance, refusing to succumb to the encroaching darkness. "Remember who you are, Jordan," Xenos urged. "Remember what we fought for." The void entity surged forward, its formless mass threatening to devour them both. Xenos channeled every ounce of his species' psychic prowess. He forged Jordan's fractured identities into a gleaming blade of pure will and memory. "Now, Jordan!" Xenos shouted. "Strike!" Their combined consciousness, honed to a razor's edge, plunged into the heart of the singularity. Reality itself seemed to scream as they pierced its event horizon. For an eternal instant, Xenos glimpsed the birthing grounds of cosmic horrors. Then, with a soundless detonation, the void entity ruptured from within. Jordan's essence snapped back together, purged of the last devourer taint. But as the shockwave of their victory rippled outward, Xenos saw beyond the dying singularity. Visions of unimaginable devastation assaulted his mind. Entire galaxies crumbled to dust. Alien intelligences beyond comprehension reshaped the very fabric of existence. And through it all, a darkness vaster and more terrifying than anything they'd faced before. Xenos wrenched himself free of the psychic link, gasping as his consciousness slammed back into his physical form. He found himself floating in the wreckage of their ship, surrounded by the tattered remnants of a starscape. Nearby, Jordan drifted motionless in a makeshift stasis field. As Xenos took stock of their dire situation, the weight of what he'd witnessed settled upon him. They had won this battle, but the true war had only just begun.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.